And good morning again, everybody. Claire Marie here at the controls. Danielle at controls. We're all surrounded by controllers here this morning. And Tim Aschoff is with us. And you guys know Tim. He's a very familiar voice. I would imagine folks hear you speak at some of the booths at the truck shops you visit and say, wait a minute, I've heard you on the radio.
They do, and it's great to have that because I love to talk to drivers. And so when they make that connection right away, it's always fun to have that, and it starts the conversation. So it's great.
We have to retrain ourselves. We have to get new GPS coordinates for the show this year. It's all different. It's in the same complex, but a completely different arena.
Yeah, I walk in and I'm normally used to going right, and I turn right and it's wrong. So yeah, it's a different layout.
Yeah, but I think it's good. I think it's even better.
I do too. I think the flow worked well with the long aisles, and people could see where they wanted to be, and the layout where they have the pride and polish. So I think it worked well too. So it's a good layout.
It's so nice to be able to get those trucks inside.
It is.
It really is. It really is. You are on the ELD discussion panel.
I am, yes. Tomorrow morning at 9:30, there's going to be an ELD discussion panel, and I think for those of you who maybe been in the show already or coming, ELD is the hot topic. Yesterday, the FMCSA spoke. It was standing room only, and I think what it's kind of showing is as we're getting closer to the mandate deadline, it's crunch time, and so a lot of vendors are here with ELD products, and certainly it seems like there's a lot of drivers, particularly owner-operators, that are interested in them. And so what we want to discuss tomorrow at the panel is the practical side of it. So there'll be a manufacturer, so a representative of Omnitrax will be on the panel. I will be on the panel as the company representative. What does it mean for us? And then we're going to have a couple owner-operators on the panel to talk about the transition they went through when they went from paper to electronic log. So hopefully it'll be a good, informative session for drivers that are looking at that transition coming up in the next few months.
You and I have had a discussion about e-commerce and how it's changing the face of trucking all the way around. And one of the things about that, it's all computer, all cyber driven. You push a button and your stuff comes.
Right.
And all of the things that make that stuff come in the interim, folks don't think about that. But you have to pretty much be in step. It's almost like if you're going to play the game, you have to wear the uniform. And what I mean by that is we are living in the age of the ELD, whether we want to admit it or not.
Right.
The age of paper is last century.
It is, and I think kind of what you're getting at there is the ELDs are being driven as much by the market as it is regulation.
Yeah, exactly.
Our customers are saying, hey, I need to know where your trucks exactly are with my freight. Does the drivers have enough hours of service left available to deliver it at the appointment time? And they want to know that in some cases every 15 minutes. And you just can't do that without having the ELDs on the trucks.
I may make a lot of people mad here, but in retrospect, in about 10 years, we may look back at the mandate to say, that was actually a blessing in disguise, because if you don't keep up with the marketplace and competition, you're going to get left behind. And if you're left behind, you are out of the game. The mandate may force people into that world, but that world is here already.
I absolutely agree with that, and not only from the market pushing it, but I also think ultimately the drivers will look back, and from their satisfaction, they'll say that too. We've had ELDs at Crete for over 6 or 7 years, and at first with the transition, some of our drivers were concerned as well. But after having the ELDs, after just not having the administrative piece of the paperwork being lifted from them, they enjoyed that. But not only that, then just the schedule that they knew they were going to be able to keep, and if something went wrong, they wouldn't be expected, to fix it. We had as a carrier, and the customers had to fix it. We had to adjust appointment times. Took a lot of pressure off of them and made their life better. I think as the whole market sees that, looking back 5 years from now, they'll say that's a much better place.
Although right now we are in a period of transition, the transition period is always the toughest. It's always the hardest to navigate, and that's where we are right now. But when you pull back, it's going to be a very short period of time in the long scheme. Trucking's been around for 100 years.
Absolutely, and we've gone through a lot of transitions with a lot of different things, and we're still here, and we're still a major industry in the country, and so I think we'll survive.
Okay, now let's kind of get down to maybe individuals. You talk to drivers all the time. That's one of the things we love about you. You really are there for drivers, not just your own at Crete Safer Hunt, but all around the country. That's why you're on the panel tomorrow morning. What are some of the drivers' concerns that you've been told to talking about with your guys?
Well, I think what they're generally concerned about is two things. One, just the practical. How does an ELD work? It's new, it's different. They haven't used it. It's electronic. Some drivers aren't as electronic savvy as others. Some are more. Some are very savvy, but others aren't. And so practically, how do I get the ELD? How do I hook it to my truck? What do I have to do? I think the FMCSA yesterday did a good job of that piece, because it's more than just hooking the unit in your truck. You have to know what you can do to edit logs and those practical things that go along with it. But then the second part of it is, okay, I've followed hours of service rules as I understand them with paper. Is it different with electronic logs? And, the short answer is no, it really isn't. But, with paper, you round to the nearest 15-minute. There's those types of things. If I do a personal conveyance, I can just mark it on there. What do I do with electronic log? So it's then how do you kind of match up hours of service compliance with some of the things that aren't quite so black and white using an electronic log?
So you have training. You train, because I've talked to drivers over the last several months. You went to ELD. What kind of training tutorial did you get? Well, nothing, because they said you got an ELD in your truck. See you next Wednesday. That is not really the way to do this.
It's not. And when we converted, we brought all of our drivers in for some classroom training and then some hands-on training. And then we did it in waves, so we could have support people that would be available for them to call. But then the great thing that we've done, since, essentially we've had ELDs for a long period of time, now it's just some new drivers we hire on that haven't had E-logs. So we give them that classroom training when they come on, but then we can pair them up with a mentor driver. Drivers learn well from other drivers, and what do they have to do to adjust in the real world? And so another driver is the best person to do that. So that's been really successful for us, is having that driver mentor program.
Let's say it's all said and done. We're at December 19th now, and we're moving on ahead. Boy, I always put you on the spot and ask you to look into the Tim Aschoff crystal ball, but what kind of changes do you think are really going to happen industry-wide, maybe even down to individual drivers, new world, so to speak?
So I actually think that we're going to have to see a lot of change on the shipper and receiver side, because I think...
Which is a long time coming.
It is, and I think, for a lot of them, they're now getting a little bit nervous too. For a lot of them, almost like some of the drivers, they're saying, well, it's a mandate, it's 2 years, will it last? And it's really not going to have a lot of impact. Now we're hearing from a lot of shippers and receivers that some of their other carriers have converted to E-logs, and they're having some challenges meeting the schedules. Particularly some of those loads that are, maybe 600, 650 miles, and they have them as a one-day run, because they think, well, you can drive 11 hours and go, 60 miles an hour, and that's 1 day's worth of hours. Everything has to go perfect for it to be 1 day's worth of hours. And if there's any delay on the pickup, any delay on the delivery, anything in between, it doesn't work with electronic logs. And so I think they're going to really see their service change, and they're going to have to change then their scheduling, and they're working with carriers in order to make that work.
Well, you're already seeing some folks get on that bus, though.
Yeah, absolutely. And the good thing we have is, we have a number of long-term really good customers that, as we mentioned, we've been on E-logs for a long time, so they've adjusted, because they have a big carrier like us that is, working with them on saying, here's how the schedule, really works.
So the panel is tomorrow morning at 9:30.
Yes. It's at the Trucker News stage, and for those of you who haven't been in it, it's at the end of the long walkway. There's a stage on each end. We're the one on the left. So.
Got it. And the booth, though, is right in the middle of the show.
Right.
Of your Crete Carrier Corporation booth is 29028.
That's correct. And we also have another booth that's 38024, where we have one of our 2014 Cascadias that we're selling here to any owner-operator or others that are interested. So we have one of our sale trucks here as well.
Tim, always great to see you in person. Always great to have you on the show each month. And we'll stop by the booth later on this afternoon.
Sounds great. Thank you, Dave.
Tim Aschoff, everybody, and we'll be right back.